The ground shook under Jake Morrison's boots as another explosion rocked the mining colony. Orange flames lit up the dark sky of Kepler 442b, and the smell of burned metal filled the air. Jake pressed his back against the concrete wall and checked his rifle. Only 12 shots left. Morrison, where are you? Captain Lisa Grant's voice crackled through his radio. The static made it hard to hear her words. Building 7, Captain. The aliens are everywhere, Jake replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. His green uniform was torn and dirty from 3 days of fighting. The Zephyrians had come without warning. Their silver ships dropped from space like falling stars, bringing death and destruction to the peaceful mining world. The colonists never had a chance. Now Jake and his squad were trying to save whoever they could find. Get to the old ruins. On the north side, Captain Grant ordered. We're pulling everyone out. This place is lost. Jake looked around the corner of the building. 3 Zephyrian soldiers walked down the street, their tall blue bodies moving in perfect formation. They carried weapons that shot bright purple beams instead of bullets. Jake had seen those beams cut through solid steel like paper. He waited until they passed, then ran across the street. His heavy boots splashed through puddles of water mixed with oil. The mining equipment lay broken and twisted everywhere. Some of it was still smoking from the alien attacks. The ruins Captain Grant mentioned were old, maybe thousands of years old. Nobody knew who built them or why they were here. The colonists had found them when they first arrived, but they were just broken stones and metal. Most people ignored them. Jake reached the edge of the ruins just as the sky lit up with more explosions. The Zephyrians were bombing the spaceport now. Soon there would be no way off this planet. He had to hurry. The ruins looked like a maze of fallen walls and broken pillars. Strange symbols were carved into the stone, symbols that nobody could read. Jake had been here once before on a training exercise. He remembered there was a large building in the center, something that looked like a temple. He moved carefully through the rubble, trying not to make noise. His radio buzzed with reports from other soldiers. Most of the news was bad. The aliens were winning, and they were winning fast. Squad 2 is gone, someone reported. The aliens got him at the water plant. Squad 5 needs help at the medical center, another voice said. They're surrounded. Jake felt sick. These were his friends, people he had trained with and fought beside. Now they were dying, and he could not help them. A purple beam flashed past his head, so close he felt the heat. Jake dove behind a broken wall as more shots followed. He had been spotted. Human soldier, surrender now, a cold voice called out. In perfect English. The Zephyrians had learned human languages quickly. You cannot escape. Jake counted 3 voices, maybe 4. Too many to fight with only 12 shots. He looked around for another way out. Behind him stood the old temple, its entrance dark and silent. More purple beams hit the wall above him, sending pieces of stone flying. Jake made his decision. He jumped up and ran toward the temple, zigzagging to avoid the alien fire. The temple entrance was narrow, barely wide enough for one person. Jake squeezed through and found himself in a large, dark room. The only light came from small holes. In the ceiling, where stones had fallen out, he could hear the Zephyrians outside, talking in their strange language. They sounded angry. Jake hoped they would not follow him into the temple. Many aliens were afraid of old places like this. As his eyes got used to the darkness, Jake saw that the temple was bigger than he thought. The walls were covered with more of those strange symbols. In the center of the room stood a platform made of black stone. On top of the platform was something that made Jake's heart race. It was a suit of armor, but not like any armor he had ever seen. It was made of some kind of metal that seemed to change color in the dim light. Sometimes it looked silver, sometimes blue, sometimes almost black. The armor covered everything from head to toe, like a second skin. The suit stood upright on the platform as if someone was wearing it, but Jake could tell it was empty. Strange lines ran across its surface, glowing very faintly with blue light. The helmet had no face, just a smooth surface that reflected the light from above. Jake heard footsteps outside. The Zephyrians were getting closer. He had to choose. He could try to fight them with his 12 bullets, or he could try something crazy, the armor called to him somehow. It looked human-sized, maybe even made for someone his height. Jake climbed onto the platform and touched the suit's chest. The metal was warm, which was strange. Everything else in the temple was cold, purple. Light flashed behind him. The aliens had found the entrance. Jake could hear them forcing their way through the narrow opening. In a few seconds, they would be inside. Jake found what looked like an opening in the back of the suit. He pulled it apart and climbed inside. The armor was surprisingly light and comfortable. It felt like it was made just for him. The moment Jake's head went into the helmet, everything changed. The armor sealed around him with a soft hissing sound. Suddenly he could see perfectly in the dark. The temple walls were covered with information that appeared in his vision like a computer screen. Then he heard the voice. "Greetings, warrior." The voice was calm and deep, speaking directly into his mind. "I am Nexus 7, guardian construct of the progenitor race. You have awakened me from a 1,000-year slumber." Jake tried to speak but found he could just think his words. The suit would understand. "What are you? Are you alive?" "I am both machine and mind, created by those who came before. I have waited long for a worthy warrior to bond with, someone who fights not for conquest, but for protection of the innocent." The temple entrance exploded inward. 3 Zephyrian soldiers stepped through, their weapons ready. They saw Jake in the armor and stopped, clearly surprised. "I can help you defeat them," Nexus 7 said in Jake's mind. "But you must trust me. Let me show you what this armor can do." Jake felt power flowing through the suit. His muscles felt stronger, his reflexes faster. Information about the Zephyrians appeared in his vision. Their weak points, their weapon types, their likely tactics. "Together we can save your people," Nexus 7 continued. "But first we must survive this moment. Are you ready, Jake Morrison?" Jake was surprised the suit knew his name, but there was no time to ask questions. The Zephyrians were raising their weapons. Purple beams began to fill the air around him. "I'm ready," Jake thought back to his new companion. The suit moved like liquid lightning. Jake found himself jumping higher than any human could jump, moving faster than he ever thought possible. The Zephyrian weapons could not track him. In seconds, the fight was over. Jake stood in the silent temple, breathing hard inside the helmet. The 3 alien soldiers lay unconscious on the floor. The suit had weapons he did not understand, but they had only stunned the enemies, not killed them. "Why didn't we kill them?" Jake asked. "Because," Nexus 7 replied, "a true warrior protects life whenever possible. Even enemy life. This is the way of the progenitors, and it will be our way too." Jake looked down at his hands, now covered in the strange armor. He was no longer just a human soldier. He was something new, something that might be able to save his people and maybe even end this war. Outside, the sounds of battle continued, but now Jake had hope. He had a partner, a friend he had never expected to find. Together, they would face whatever came next. Jake stepped out of the temple and immediately stumbled. The armor made him feel 10 times stronger, but he could not control it properly. When he tried to walk normally, each step sent him flying forward. When he reached for his radio, he crushed it in his armored hand. "Careful, Jake Morrison," Nexus 7 said in his mind. "My systems are designed for combat, not delicate movements. You must learn to think smaller thoughts with your body." "Think smaller thoughts?" Jake asked, confused. He tried to take a gentle step but launched himself into a broken wall instead. The stone cracked under his weight. "Your human strength is now multiplied by 50. Your speed is increased by 20. Your senses can detect enemies from great distances. But all of this requires practice," Nexus 7 explained patiently. "We must learn to work together, not against each other." Jake heard explosions in the distance. The war was still happening, and his friends were still fighting, but he could barely walk without destroying something. "How long will this take to learn?" "For most warriors, many months," Nexus 7 replied. "But you are different. I can feel your determination. Perhaps we can manage it in days if we both try hard." Jake's radio was broken, but the suit had its own communication system. Nexus 7 connected to the human military frequency without being asked. Captain Grant's voice came through clearly. All units, fall back to the spaceport. We're loading the last civilians now. Anyone who can help, get here fast. I have to get to the spaceport, Jake said. Then we shall go together, Nexus 7 replied. But first, let me show you how to move properly in my shell. The suit began to teach Jake how to control his new abilities. Instead of walking, he learned to glide smoothly across the ground. Instead of grabbing things with full strength, he learned to use just enough force. It was like learning to use his body all over again. They moved through the ruins toward the spaceport. Along the way, Jake practiced with the suit's systems. He could see through walls, hear conversations from far away, and detect heat signatures of living beings. The amount of information was overwhelming. Too much, Jake said, holding his head. I can't process all of this. I will filter the information. For you, Nexus 7 said. I will show you only what you need to know for each situation. In time, you will learn to handle more. As they got closer to the spaceport, Jake saw the devastation. Buildings were destroyed, vehicles were overturned, and smoke rose from dozens of fires. But he also saw something else. Zephyrian soldiers were moving in organized groups surrounding the spaceport. They're setting up an ambush, Jake realized. My people don't know they're walking into a trap. Then we must warn them, Nexus 7 said. But first, we must prove that we can work together in real combat. Are you ready to try? Jake looked at the group of Zephyrian soldiers below them. There were at least 20 of them, all carrying those deadly purple beam weapons. A few. Hours ago, Jake would have been terrified. Now he felt something else, confidence. Let's do this, Jake said. The suit launched them into the air. Jake soared over the broken buildings like a bird, but he felt in control this time. Nexus 7 was guiding his movements, helping him land exactly where he wanted to. They dropped down behind the Zephyrian squad. The aliens turned, surprised by the sudden appearance of the armored figure. Jake expected Nexus 7 to attack immediately, but the suit waited. What are we doing? Jake asked. We are giving them a chance to surrender, Nexus 7 replied. This is the way of the progenitors, violence only when necessary. Jake stood up slowly, his armored form towering over the Zephyrian soldiers. The aliens were tall, but Jake in the suit was taller. He spoke in a voice that the suit made louder and more commanding. You are surrounded, Jake said, even though he was only one person. Leave this place and no one will be harmed. The Zephyrian leader, wearing different colored armor than the others, laughed. One human in stolen armor against 20 warriors? You are either very brave or very stupid. Sometimes they are the same thing, Jake replied. The Zephyrians opened fire. Purple beams filled the air around Jake, but none of them hit him. The suit moved him out of the way faster than the aliens could track. Jake found himself dancing between the laser beams like they were moving in slow motion. Now we fight, Nexus 7 said. Remember, we protect life. Stun them. Do not kill them. The suit's weapons were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Blue energy shot from his hands, wrapping around the Zephyrian soldiers like ropes. The energy did not hurt them, but it held them in place. Other weapons fired small projectiles that hit the aliens and made them fall asleep instantly. In less than a minute, all 20 Zephyrian soldiers were either tied up or unconscious. Jake stood among them, amazed at what they had accomplished. That was incredible, Jake said. How did you do that? We did that, Nexus 7 corrected. You provided the courage and determination. I provided the tools and knowledge. Together we are much stronger than either of us alone. Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. He was starting to like this strange artificial being. You're not just a weapon, are you? No, Jake Morrison. I am a guardian, a protector, a keeper of knowledge. My creators, the progenitors, built me to help others, not to destroy them. They believed that all life was precious, even enemy life. What happened to them, the progenitors? There was a pause before Nexus 7 answered. They were destroyed by something terrible, something that may return someday. But that is a story for another time. Right now, your people need our help. Jake and Nexus 7 reached the spaceport to find chaos. Human soldiers were trying to load the last civilians onto transport ships while fighting off Zephyrian attacks. From three sides. Captain Grant was in the middle of it all, shouting orders and firing her rifle. "Captain!" Jake called out, running toward her. But he misjudged his speed and crashed into a pile of cargo containers instead. The containers exploded in all directions. Captain Grant spun around, her weapon pointed at Jake. When she saw the armor, her eyes went wide. "Morrison? Is that you in there?" "Yes, Captain." "I found some help," Jake said, climbing out of the wreckage. "This is Nexus 7. He's friendly." "It's an alien suit," Captain Grant said suspiciously. "How do we know it's not controlling you?" "Because I choose to work with Jake Morrison," Nexus 7 spoke through the suit's external speakers. "I do not control him. We are partners." Before Captain Grant could respond, more Zephyrian soldiers appeared at the edge of the spaceport. These ones looked different, bigger, and more heavily armed. They carried weapons that glowed with red energy instead of purple. "Hunter killers," Captain Grant breathed. "Everyone take cover." The new weapons fired beams that cut through the transport ship's armor like it was paper. One of the ships exploded, taking 20 civilians with it. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "We have to stop them," Jake said. "Agreed," Nexus 7 replied. "But these enemies are stronger than the others. We must be smarter, not just faster." Jake and Nexus 7 charged toward the hunter killers. But this time, the fight was different. The aliens were ready for them. Their weapons could track Jake's movements, and their armor was stronger than the other soldiers. Jake found himself dodging and weaving, but barely staying ahead of the red beams. One shot grazed his shoulder, and he felt heat even through the suit's protection. "I cannot defeat them using my old methods," Nexus 7 said. "We need a new approach. What would you do, Jake Morrison?" Jake thought quickly. "The civilians. They're trying to protect the transport ships. What if we move the fight away from them?" "An excellent plan," Nexus 7 said with something like pride in his voice. "You think like a true protector?" Jake began making loud noises and showing himself to the hunter killers. He wanted their attention. When they started chasing him, he led them away from the spaceport and into the ruins where they had first met, among the broken stones and fallen pillars. Jake and Nexus 7 fought differently. They used the environment, hiding behind walls and attacking from unexpected angles. The hunter killers were strong, but they were not as flexible as the human suit partnership. One by one, Jake and Nexus 7 defeated the hunter killers. Not by overpowering them, but by outsmarting them. By the time they returned to the spaceport, Captain Grant had loaded the last of the civilians onto the remaining transport ships. "Morrison," Captain Grant said as Jake approached. "Command is going to want to know about that suit. They're going to want to study it." Jake felt Nexus 7's concern through their connection. "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means they might try to separate us," Nexus 7 said quietly in his mind. "But we are stronger together, remember that." As the transport ships prepared to leave the planet, Jake looked back at the ruins where his life had changed forever. He had found more than just a powerful weapon. He had found a friend, but he also knew that their real challenges were just beginning. 3 weeks after leaving Kepler 442b, Jake and Nexus 7 were stationed on the military base called New Haven. The base was built inside a large asteroid, with tunnels and rooms carved into the rock. It was supposed to be safe from Zephyrian attacks. But Jake did not feel safe. He felt like he was being watched all the time. "They are studying us," Nexus 7 said during one of their morning training sessions. "I can detect their scanning equipment hidden in the walls." Jake punched a practice target, leaving a dent in the metal. His control had improved greatly over the past weeks. He could now eat dinner, shake hands, and even write reports without breaking anything, but he still felt clumsy sometimes. "Let them study," Jake said. "We have nothing to hide. Do we not?" Nexus 7 asked. "There are things about my creators that your people are not ready to know, things that might frighten them." Before Jake could ask what Nexus 7 meant, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres entered the training room. Torres was a thin man with sharp eyes who worked for military intelligence. He had been asking Jake questions about the suit almost every day. "Good morning, Morrison," Torres said, holding a tablet computer. "I have some new tests we need to run on your equipment." "The suit has a name," Jake said firmly. "His name is Nexus 7 and he's not equipment, he's my partner." Torres smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Of course. I meant no disrespect to your ... but you must understand this technology could change everything. If we could make more suits like this one, we could end the war." "I cannot be copied," Nexus 7 spoke through the suit's speakers. "I am not a machine that can be built in a factory. I am a unique consciousness, created by methods your people do not understand." "Everything can be copied with enough time and study," Torres replied. "We just need to understand how you work." Jake felt Nexus 7's discomfort through their connection. The suit did not like being treated like a thing to be studied. "Commander Torres, Nexus 7 is helping us by choice. If you keep pushing him, he might change his mind. Is that a threat, Morrison?" "It's a fact," Jake said. "We work together because we want to." "You can't force that." Torres made notes on his tablet and left without another word. Jake could feel Nexus 7's worry growing stronger. "He will try to separate us," Nexus 7 said. "I have seen this pattern before in other civilizations. They find something they do not understand, and they try to take it apart to learn its secrets." "I won't let that happen," Jake promised. "We're partners. That means we stick together." That afternoon, Jake and Nexus 7 were sent on a rescue mission. A small group of human prisoners had been captured by the Zephyrians and were being held in a prison camp on the moon of Titan 7. The mission was supposed to be simple: get in, save the prisoners, get out. But when Jake and 3 other soldiers arrived at the prison camp, they found something unexpected. The camp was almost empty. Only a few guards were left, and they seemed to be packing up to leave. "This feels wrong," Jake said to his team leader, Sergeant Bill Adams. "Why would they leave so few guards?" "Maybe they're moving the prisoners to a new location," Adams suggested. "We need to check the buildings." Jake and Nexus 7 entered the largest building in the camp. Inside, they found 12 human prisoners locked in small cells. The prisoners looked tired and scared, but they were alive. "Thank goodness," said one of the prisoners, a woman named Dr. Helen Price. "We thought no one was coming for us." "We're getting you out of here," Jake said, using the suit's strength to break open the cell doors. "But we need to move fast." As they were freeing the prisoners, Nexus 7 suddenly spoke in Jake's mind. "Something is wrong. I am detecting strange energy readings from below us." "Below us?" Jake asked. "There are tunnels under this building. The Zephyrians have been digging. They have found something." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of something?" "I'm not certain, but the energy signature is familiar. It reminds me of the technology that destroyed my creators." Before Jake could respond, the ground began to shake. A loud humming sound filled the air, and the lights in the building flickered. The prisoners looked around in panic. "We need to leave now," Jake said to Sergeant Adams over the radio. "Something bad is happening here," but it was too late. The floor in the center of the building exploded upward, and something emerged from the hole. It was a machine, but not like any machine Jake had ever seen. It was black as space, with tentacles that moved like living things. Red lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. "Void spawn technology," Nexus 7 said, and Jake could hear fear in the suit's voice. "They have found a piece of the enemy that destroyed my creators." The machine fired a beam of dark energy at the wall. Where the beam hit, the metal did not just break or melt. It disappeared completely as if it had never existed. "Everyone out," Jake shouted. "Move, move, move!" The prisoners ran for the exit, but the machine was blocking their path. Jake stepped between the prisoners and the alien device. The machine turned its attention to him, and Jake felt something cold touch his mind. "Interesting," a voice said inside his head. But this voice was not like Nexus 7's. This voice was empty, hungry, and full of hate. A guardian construct. I thought we had destroyed them all. Stay out of my head, Jake said, but the voice laughed. You cannot stop us, little guardian. We have been waiting, growing stronger in the dark between stars. Soon we will return to finish what we started. Jake tried to fight the machine, but his weapons barely scratched its surface. The dark energy beams kept coming, and Jake had to keep moving to avoid them. One beam hit the wall behind him, and part of the building simply vanished. Jake, Nexus 7 said urgently, I must share something with you. Something I have never shared. With anyone. Now? Jake asked, dodging another beam. If we are to survive this, you must know the truth. The Void Spawn are not just an enemy. They are entropy itself, the force that seeks to return all things to nothing. My creators built me and others like me to fight them, but we failed. Jake felt Nexus 7 doing something inside the suit. Energy flowed between them, and suddenly Jake could see memories that were not his own. He saw a beautiful world with crystal cities and flying vehicles. He saw a peaceful people who had never known war. And he saw the day the Void Spawn came. The memory was painful. Jake watched as entire planets were consumed by the dark machines. He saw brave warriors in suits like Nexus 7 fighting desperately against an enemy that could not be defeated. He saw the last of the progenitors making a terrible choice. They scattered us across the galaxy, Nexus 7 explained while Jake fought the machine. Each guardian was sent to a different world to wait for the day when the Void Spawn would return. We were meant to prepare the younger races for this fight. But you're just one suit, Jake said, blasting the machine with every weapon he had. How can one suit make a difference? Because we are not just one suit anymore, Nexus 7 said. We are something new. Human and progenitor together? You have something my creators never had. What's that? Hope, the ability to bring different peoples together? The progenitors fought alone and lost. But you have already shown that enemies can become allies? Jake felt a change happening inside the suit. Nexus 7 was sharing more than just memories. The suit was sharing part of its very essence, its consciousness. With Jake, the process was painful, like being struck by lightning, but Jake did not resist. When the sharing was complete, Jake felt different. He was still human, but he was also something more. He could feel the suit's knowledge flowing through his mind. And he could sense things he had never sensed before. Most importantly, he could feel the weakness in the Void Spawn machine. There, Jake said, pointing to a spot on the machine's surface. That's where its power source is. Using his new understanding, Jake fired a concentrated beam at the weak point. The machine shuddered and began to break apart. The dark energy faded, and the hungry voice in Jake's head screamed in anger before disappearing. The machine collapsed into pieces. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. The Void Spawn were coming back, and this was just a small piece of their technology. We need to tell Command about this, Jake said to Sergeant Adams as they loaded the rescued prisoners onto their transport ship. Tell them what? Adams asked. Jake looked at Nexus 7's reflection in the transport window. The suit looked the same, but Jake could feel that they were different now. They were truly partners, sharing thoughts and memories and fears. Tell them, we're going to need help, Jake said. A lot of help. As their ship flew back toward New Haven, Jake and Nexus 7 began planning for the future. They had learned something important during the rescue mission. The real enemy was not the Zephyrians. The real enemy was something much worse, something that threatened all life in the galaxy. And if they were going to stop it, they would need to do something that had never been done before. They would need to unite all the fighting races against a common threat, but first they had to survive what was coming next. Because Lieutenant Commander Torres was waiting for them at the base, and he had orders from the highest levels of command, orders that would test the bond between human and machine like never before. When Jake and his team returned to New Haven, General Patricia Hayes was waiting for them in the docking bay. She was a tall woman with gray hair and hard eyes who had been fighting wars for 30 years. Behind her stood Lieutenant Commander Torres and 6 military police officers. Sergeant Morrison, General Hayes said as Jake stepped off the transport ship, you will come with us immediately. Your suit will be removed for complete analysis. Jake felt Nexus 7's alarm through their shared connection. General, with respect, the suit can't be removed. We're connected now. Separating us could be dangerous. That's exactly why we need to study it, Torres interrupted. This alien technology is changing you, Morrison. We need to understand how and why. I am not changing, Jake Morrison, Nexus 7 spoke through the suit's speakers. We are evolving. Together, this is what my creators intended. General Hayes looked uncomfortable hearing the suit speak. It talks like it's alive, but it's just a machine. A very advanced machine that we need to understand. I'm alive, Nexus 7 said firmly. I remember. I choose to work with Jake Morrison because he treats me as a friend, not as a tool. Enough, General Hayes said. Morrison, that's an order. Report to Medical Base 7 in 1 hour. The suit comes off. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but Nexus 7's calm voice helped him stay controlled. General, I need to tell you something. Important. The Zephyrians aren't our real enemy. There's something much worse coming. We'll discuss that after we understand what that suit has done to your brain, Torres said. Your behavior has been increasingly erratic since you bonded with it. Before Jake could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the base. Red lights flashed and an automated voice announced, all personnel to battle stations. Enemy fleet approaching. All personnel to battle stations. General Hayes touched her earpiece to receive a report. Her face went pale. How many ships? She asked. After listening, she looked at Jake with new understanding. Zephyrian fleet. 300 ships. They found our base. That's impossible, Torres said. This location is classified. How could they know where we are? Jake and Nexus 7 exchanged information through their mental link faster than human speech. They're not attacking us, Jake realized. They're running from something. Nexus 7 is detecting the same energy signatures we found at the prison camp. The void spawn, Nexus 7 confirmed. They are close behind the Zephyrian fleet. General Hayes stared at Jake. How could you possibly know that? Because the suit can detect things our sensors can't, Jake explained. General, we need to talk to the Zephyrians. They're not coming here to fight us. They're coming here to hide. Torres laughed harshly. Talk to them. They've been killing our people for months. Why would we talk to them? Because if we don't work together, we're all going to die, Jake said. The void spawn destroy everything. They don't care if you're human or Zephyrian or any other race. They just want to turn everything back into nothing. The base shook as explosions echoed through the corridors. But these were not the sounds of battle. They were the sounds of ships docking, many ships docking at once. The Zephyrians are requesting permission to board, an officer reported to General Hayes. Their lead ship is asking to speak with our commander under a flag of truce. It's a trap, Torres said immediately. No, Nexus 7 said. I can sense their emotions through their technology. They are afraid, not angry. They are seeking help, not planning an attack. General Hayes looked at Jake for a long moment. Can you really sense their emotions? Nexus 7 can, Jake replied. The progenitors built him to understand all forms of life. He can read the intentions of other beings through their technology and life signs. This is ridiculous, Torres said. You're making decisions based on what an alien computer tells you. He's not a computer, Jake said firmly. He's my partner. And he's never lied to me. General Hayes made a decision that surprised everyone. Bring their leader to conference room 1. Morrison, you and your ... Dartner will be there to help. With communication, Torres, you'll monitor everything. 30 minutes later, Jake stood in conference room 1 facing the strangest gathering he had ever seen. General Hayes sat at one end of a long table. At the other end sat Admiral Zektar, the leader of the Zephyrian fleet. The alien was 7 feet tall with blue skin and 4 arms. His large eyes held a mix of pride and desperation. Why should we trust you? General Hayes asked through a translation device. Your people have been attacking our colonies for months. Admiral Zektar's reply came through the translator in a voice full of pain. Because we are dying. The Shadow Devourers have consumed 17 of our worlds. We have nowhere else to run. Shadow Devourers? General Hayes asked. That's what they call the Void Spawn, Nexus 7 explained to Jake, who repeated the information. Different races have different names for them, but they're all the same enemy. Jake stepped forward. Admiral, Nexus 7 wants to show you something. It might help you understand what we're dealing with. Nexus 7? The Admiral asked. That is a progenitor name. The builders of old used such names for their guardian spirits. You know about the progenitors? Jake asked, surprised. My people kept the old stories. The builders who came before, who fought the Shadow Devourers long ago. We thought they were just legends. Nexus 7 projected a hologram above the table. It showed star maps with moving dots representing different fleets. The Zephyrian ships were shown in blue, moving away from large red masses that were following them. The Void Spawn fleet is 3 times larger than yours, Nexus 7 announced. They will arrive here in approximately 6 hours. Neither human nor Zephyrian forces are strong enough to defeat them alone. Admiral Zektar looked at the hologram with all 4 of his eyes. The Guardian Spirit speaks truth. We have tried to fight them. We lost every battle. So did my creators, Nexus 7 admitted. But they fought alone, each race against the Void Spawn by themselves. They never learned to work together. General Hayes studied the star map. What are you suggesting? A combined fleet, Jake said, the words coming from both his own thoughts and Nexus 7's knowledge. Human technology and Zephyrian technology? Working together, your weapons are different from ours. Together we might have a chance. Impossible, Torres said. We can't trust them. This could all be an elaborate trick. Admiral Zektar stood up, his forearms spread wide. Commander Torres, I offer you something no Zephyrian has ever offered a human. I give you my life bond. If we betray you, you may execute me and my entire family line. The room fell silent. Even Torres looked shocked. What does that mean? General Hayes asked. Among my people, the life bond is the most sacred promise, the Admiral explained. It means I value this alliance more than my own existence. Jake felt Nexus 7 scanning the Admiral's emotions. He's telling the truth, Jake reported. He really is willing to die to make this alliance work. General Hayes looked at the hologram, showing the approaching Void Spawn fleet. She looked at Admiral Zektar, then at Jake and his armor. Finally, she made the hardest decision of her military career. All right, she said. We'll try it. But the first sign of betrayal, and this alliance is over. Agreed, Admiral Zektar said. The next few hours were chaos. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian technicians to combine their weapon systems. Pilots from both races practiced flying in mixed formations. Soldiers who had been shooting at each other just days before were now sharing ammunition and medical supplies. Jake and Nexus 7 moved between the different groups, helping with translation and solving technical problems. The suit's knowledge of multiple technologies made him invaluable in connecting human and Zephyrian systems, but Torres was not giving up. He pulled General Hayes aside and spoke to her privately. General, this is madness. We're giving our enemies access to all our technology. When this is over, they'll use everything they've learned against us. When this is over, General Hayes replied, we might all be dead if we don't work together. I'm willing to take that risk. What about Morrison? He's more alien than human. Now, how do we know the suit isn't controlling him, making him help the enemy? General Hayes watched Jake working with a group of Zephyrian engineers. The alien armor moved smoothly as Jake helped them understand human power systems. She could see that Jake was still himself, still the soldier she had known for years. Because, she said finally, Morrison has never been more human than he is. Right now he's doing what humans do best. He's bringing people together. As the Void Spawn fleet appeared on the edge of the star system, Jake felt Nexus 7's mix of fear and hope. They were about to face the enemy that had destroyed the progenitors. But this time, they were not fighting alone. Are you ready, my friend? Nexus 7 asked in Jake's mind. We're ready, Jake replied, speaking for both of them. The final battle was about to begin. The Void Spawn fleet emerged from the darkness like a nightmare made real. Jake watched from the bridge of the human flagship as hundreds of black ships appeared on the screens. Each ship looked like it was made of living shadow, with tentacles that moved and twisted in ways that hurt to look at. By the ancient stars, Admiral Zektar whispered, his forearms trembling. There are so many more than before. The fleet has grown, Nexus 7 said through Jake's suit speakers. They have consumed more worlds since they chased the Zephyrians. Each world they destroy makes them stronger. General Hayes stood at the command center, looking at the display screens. The combined human Zephyrian fleet had 200 ships total. The Void Spawn had over 600. The numbers were not good. All ships, this is General Hayes, she spoke into her communicator. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. Today, we're fighting for every living thing in the galaxy. Stay together, watch each other's backs, and make every shot count. Jake felt nervous energy flowing through his connection with Nexus 7, but underneath the fear, he felt something else. Hope. For the first time in 1,000 years, Nexus 7 was not fighting alone. Jake, Nexus 7 said in his mind, there is something I must tell you. The progenitors left one final gift hidden on a moon near here. A weapon that might be able to stop the Void Spawn, but accessing it is very dangerous. What kind of dangerous? Jake asked. The weapon requires a living consciousness to activate it. The process might destroy my mind or yours or both of ours. Before Jake could respond, the Void Spawn fleet attacked. Dark energy beams shot across space, and where they hit, ships simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not broken apart, but completely erased as if they had never existed. All ships, attack Formation 7, General Hayes ordered. Human ships, provide cover fire. Zephyrian ships, use your speed to get close. The battle began in earnest. Human ships fired missiles and laser cannons while Zephyrian vessels darted between the enemy ships like silver fish. The combined tactics worked better than anyone had expected. Several Void Spawn ships were damaged or destroyed, but for every enemy ship they defeated, 2 more took its place. The dark energy beams kept coming, and more allied ships disappeared into nothingness. We're losing, Admiral Zektar said, watching another human destroyer vanish. We need a new plan. Tell me about this weapon, Jake said to Nexus 7. Where is it? On the 3rd moon of this system. It's called the Starforge, and it was the progenitor's greatest creation. It can turn a star into a weapon, but someone must guide it manually. The energy involved is enormous. Jake looked at the battle raging. Around them, more ships were disappearing every minute. Soon there would be nothing left to defend the innocent people on the planets behind them. Can you get us to the moon? Jake asked. Yes, but Jake, you must understand. If we do this, we might not survive. And even if we do, we will be changed forever. Jake thought about all the people counting on them. The civilians on the transport, ships, the soldiers fighting alongside humans and Zephyrians together for the first time, and all the worlds that would fall if they failed here. We have to try, Jake said. It's what friends do for each other. Jake felt warmth flow through. Their connection, yes, Nexus 7 agreed. It is what friends do. Jake ran to General Hayes. General, Nexus 7 knows about a progenitor weapon that might stop them, but we need to get to the 3rd moon. Take a fighter, General Hayes said without hesitation. We'll cover your escape. General Hayes, Admiral Zektar interrupted. We'll send my fastest ship to escort them. If there is hope, we must protect it. Jake climbed into a small fighter craft, with Nexus 7's armor systems connecting to the ship's controls. Behind him, a sleek Zephyrian escort vessel followed. Together, they raced toward the moon while the battle continued around them. Void Spawn fighters chased them through space, firing dark energy beams. Jake's fighter twisted and turned, with Nexus 7 predicting the enemy attacks before they came. The Zephyrian escort ship used its superior speed to draw away most of the pursuers. They reached the moon and landed near what looked like a simple stone building. But when Nexus 7 scanned it, Jake could see the building was much more than it. appeared. It was connected to massive machinery buried deep in the moon's core. "This is it," Nexus 7 said as they approached the entrance. "The Starforge. My creators built it as a last resort against the void spawn." Inside the building, Jake found a chamber filled with crystal panels and floating displays. In the center was a chair made of the same material as Nexus 7's armor. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with soft blue light. "I must connect directly to the forge," Nexus 7 explained. "But to control it safely, I need to merge even more deeply with your consciousness. We will become one mind, one being. There may be no way to separate us afterward?" Jake sat in the chair and felt it mold itself to his body. "Will we still be us?" "We will be more than us," Nexus 7 replied. "We will be something new, something that has never existed before. Human emotion and determination combined with progenitor. Knowledge and power." "Let's do it," Jake said. The merging process was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. He felt his consciousness expanding, touching Nexus 7's vast memory banks and ancient wisdom. At the same time, Nexus 7 experienced human emotions for the first time: love, hope, fear, and the fierce determination to protect others. Together, they activated the Starforge. The moon began to shake as massive machinery came to life deep underground. In space above them, the system's star began to change. Its light grew brighter and more focused. Through the Starforge's sensors, Jake and Nexus 7 could see the entire battle. The combined fleet was down to less than 50 ships. The Void Spawn were preparing for their final assault. "Now," they said together, their voices merged into one. A beam of pure stellar energy shot from the star toward the Void Spawn fleet. The beam was made of the same energy that powered suns, concentrated and directed by the Starforge. Where it touched the Void Spawn ships, they did not just disappear. They were transformed back into basic matter. Their dark energy neutralized. The Void Spawn fleet tried to scatter, but the Starforge could track them all. One by one, the dark ships were caught by the stellar beam and returned to harmless dust and gas dot, but controlling so much power was incredibly difficult. Jake felt his human mind being stretched to its limits, while Nexus 7's ancient systems struggled with energies beyond even progenitor design. "Hold on," they told each other, "just a little longer." The last Void Spawn ship was destroyed, its dark energy finally extinguished. The immediate threat was over, but Jake and Nexus 7 were exhausted. The Starforge powered down and they collapsed in the chair. When Jake woke up, he was lying on a medical bed back on the human flagship. General Hayes and Admiral Zektar were standing nearby, looking concerned. "How do you feel?" "General Hayes?" asked. Jake sat up slowly and realized something had changed. He could still feel Nexus 7 in his mind, but the suit was no longer covering his body. Instead, it stood nearby like a separate person, but Jake could sense its thoughts as clearly as his own. "We're still connected," Jake said with wonder. "But we're also separate. How is that possible?" "The Starforge changed us," Nexus 7 explained, his voice now coming from his own body rather than through speakers. "We are bonded permanently, but we can exist independently when needed." "The important thing," Admiral Zektar said, "is that you saved us all." "The Void Spawn fleet is destroyed." "This time," Nexus 7 corrected, "there will be others. But now we know that different races can work together. Humans and Zephyrians, organic and artificial minds, all united against the darkness." General Hayes smiled, something Jake had rarely seen her do. "I've been authorized to offer you both a new assignment. Command wants you to establish a joint training academy. Humans and Zephyrians learning to fight together, preparing for future threats." Jake looked at Nexus 7 and his friend nodded. "We accept," they said together. 6 months later, Jake stood on the training grounds of the new Unity Academy. Human and Zephyrian cadets practiced fighting techniques together, while engineers from both races worked to create new technologies. Lieutenant Commander Torres approached Jake, looking embarrassed. "Morrison, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you and your partner. You've proven that cooperation is stronger than suspicion. We all learned something," Jake replied. Even enemies can become friends if they're willing to try. Nexus 7 joined them, his armored form moving with grace and purpose. The progenitors would be proud, he said. They always believed that unity was the key to defeating the darkness. It just took a human to show me how to make it work. As the sun set over the academy, Jake felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had found more than just a powerful ally in Nexus 7. He had found a true friend, a partner who would stand with him against any threat. Together, they had proven that friendship could cross any boundary between species, between organic and artificial life, even between former enemies. And that friendship had saved the galaxy. The darkness would return someday. But when it did, it would face something it had never encountered before. Not one race fighting alone, but all races standing together as one. Jake and Nexus 7 had started something that would change the galaxy forever.